So I'll take it again from the top. So my name's Alfie. I'm the Information Officer of the Hunt Saboteurs Association in the UK and one of the founder members of the Huntsab Global Network, for which we have nice new T-shirts. This is the new Huntsab Global Network logo. I'm really proud of this. I've been involved in direct action, especially Hound sabotage and political campaigning for well over 30 years. I was only 17 when I first encountered a traditional English fox hunt, and I've been trying to stop the hunters ever since. For the last 3 years, I've been working with activists in Europe and North America to support existing groups of hunt saboteurs and to form and train new groups of hunt saboteurs around Europe and North America. And I've also been doing a great deal of research on hunting, especially about hunting in the European Union. And I believe there's a very strong case for European Union legislation to ban some forms of hunting. Obviously, I'd like to see all forms of hunting banned, but a ban on hunting with hounds would be an achievable first step towards trying to get all sorts of hunting banned. The laws about hunting vary considerably across the European Union. Bear with me just a moment here. Just give me 2 seconds. I've got a slight technical glitch. Bear with me. Excuse me just a moment. Apologies for the slight delay. There we go. Right. So, sorry, take it again. So, laws about hunting with hounds vary considerably across the European Union, and on the screen at the moment you can see a list of which countries have laws which specifically ban hunting with hounds. Those are shown in green. Those countries where hunting with hounds is commonplace and perfectly legal are shown in red, and the countries where hunting with hounds in the traditional English sense doesn't really take place, but there are no specific laws banning it, are shown in black. The Commission of the European Union was asked whether it actually intended to bring in legislation against hunting with hounds. Unfortunately, it's this really long-winded question that was asked, but the little bit in red down the bottom there is the relevant bit, which is basically asking the Commission if they've got any intention to regulate hunting with hounds. Now, this is the answer that came back from the Commission. There's a guy called Mr. Borg, and he draws on Article 13 of the Lisbon Treaty, which basically says what the EU is actually allowed to do. So they're allowed to bring in legislation that is to do with agriculture, fisheries, transport, the internal market, research, development, technology, space. Right? So Mr. Borg is saying they can't bring in any laws on hunting because it's not actually covered by what the EU is actually allowed to do. Now, this seems very, very strange to me because there is already European legislation concerning wild birds, and there's also the Flora and Fauna Act. Now, of course, that isn't covered by those competencies laid out in Article 13, and yet the EU has actually brought in these laws, even though they don't seem to be within its range of powers, according to what Mr. Borg is saying. This is what Article 13 actually says in detail, and again I've highlighted in red the bit that seems most relevant, right? So animals are sentient beings, well we know this, and what is sentience? Sentience isn't just the ability to detect our environment, it's not just sight and hearing and taste, it's everything that makes us, isn't it? Sentience is feeling, you know, it's fear, it's pain, it's love, right? That's what sentience means. And the EU recognises that animals are sentient beings, and the EU must pay full regard to the welfare of animals. And of course, Article 13 states that recognition of sentience will be included in EU policies on agriculture, fisheries, that's a laugh given that they fund fish farms, by the way, transport, research and so on. But it doesn't say that they can only recognise and respect sentience within those areas. Right? It's not actually limiting them. So I say that they can actually bring in legislation. And even if they really want to stick within the letter of Article 13, I reckon that there's a case that many forms of hunting could be classified as agriculture. Right? Hunting is a rural activity. It's a business that takes place in the countryside. It's a kind of farming. Lots and lots of hunted animals are actually farmed in order to provide the hunters with something to hunt. In the United Kingdom, it's tragic, but the beautiful pheasant birds that are so common in the English countryside, now they're not a native British species. They actually come from the jungles of Southeast Asia. They are factory farmed in huge numbers. The conditions make the conditions of battery chickens look good by comparison. They're then released into little holding pens in the countryside. They have to have rings put through their noses because they're so overcrowded that they would peck each other to pieces if they didn't have the rings to stop them doing it. They can open their beaks just wide enough to get grain into themselves, but no wider. Then they're released into holding pens, and then they're released into the countryside. There are feed bins dotted around the woodlands to make sure they don't go too far, and then they're shot. 40% of them are shot. The other 60% die on the roads or are taken by foxes or die of disease. Now, if you were genuinely hunting for food, you would not accept a system that lost 60% of all the animals that you breed. Those pheasants are farmed so that rich idiots from the cities can pay £1,000, €1,500 a day to go and murder them. Right? But they are farmed, and farming is one of the things that the EU can regulate, so they could easily regulate that. In Germany, I've been told that they are now importing captive-bred wild boar so that the German hunters have got an adequate supply of wild boar to kill. Now again, that's farming. The EU can and must act. Right? So I reckon hunting is a kind of agriculture and easily falls within Article 13. Now, why should the EU act? Well, as we can see from what it says here, that statement in Article 13 puts animal welfare on an equal footing with other key principles, for example, gender equality, social protection, promoting human health. If the EU genuinely recognises the sentience of animals as equally important as, say, gender equality, surely they must act on some of the worst examples of animal abuse going on in the European Union at the moment, and hunting's top of that list as far as I can see. Well, actually, no, fish farming's up there too. Right. There are lots and lots of different forms of hunting across the European Union, and this is something when obviously I talk to a lot of international audiences. When I say hunting with hounds, that has a very specific meaning to me. I'm an English activist. Hunting with hounds in England, this is these guys in the red coats. You've probably seen pictures of them before. You're going to have a pack of over 50 hunting hounds, somewhere between 50 and 100 people on horseback if it's a fox hunt, less people on foot if it's a hare hunt or a mink hunt. But they're actually using the dogs to chase and kill the wild animal. Stags are the other ones where the riders would be, where the hunters would be on horseback. Right. So that's what we mean by hunting with hounds in England. Right. So the animals are actually chasing and doing the killing. Right. This is the main kind of hunt that English hunt saboteurs stop, right? And I'm really, really pleased. I just got a text message from my team who are out this morning. At this time of year, the hunts go out very, very early in the mornings. They're trying to train the new hunting hounds to replace the ones that died at the end or were killed at the end of last season. And they train them by using fox cubs, because at this time of year, the cubs are about 4 months old. It's a very, very secretive thing. It's really, really hard to find the hunts this time of year. I got a text message about an hour ago saying that my team had come back in one bit, no casualties, which is good, that they closed down the hunt completely in just 2 hours flat, and that no animals were killed by that hunt this morning. So that's really good news for my team. And I frequently get asked, so what is it you actually do then? What do you actually do when you've got this kind of hunt going on? Cub hunting at this time of year, the hunts are putting the hounds into the little woods where the foxes live. Now, we know full well that the hunts breed foxes. Right, we've got lots and lots of evidence of them either actively breeding foxes or feeding wild populations, which is curious because the whole argument they give for hunting foxes is that foxes are a pest and you have to get rid of them, so they're deliberately breeding a pest to go and kill it. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Right? And at this time of year, what they do, they get all the people on horseback surrounding the wood so that the foxes can't run away. If the fox tries to break out of that woodland, they beat the saddle of their horses with their whip to make a lot of noise to turn the fox back in so that it dies in the jaws of the hounds in the woods, right? And that's called a chop. It's totally and utterly illegal in the United Kingdom. They can't do this. They can't even pretend that they're doing one of the legal forms of hunting and get away with it. So usually the arrival of hunt saboteurs during cubbing is enough to actually stop them, and it appears that was the case this morning, because it would be a very, very silly huntsman who tried to hunt when you got 20 people all holding video cameras pointed at you, because although the police might not do anything about hunting, they will act on video evidence supplied by us, and most of the prosecutions against fox hunts have been achieved that way. Later on in the year, in November, the situation's a bit different. Right? One of the exemptions to the Hunting Act, which was brought in, which actually made this type of hunting illegal in England and Wales in 2005, they are allowed to follow a full scent. So they lay a trail across the countryside. What they usually do is shoot a fox, cut it in half, and then drag the body across the countryside. So the hounds have got a smell that they can follow. And then what happens, of course, is that they accidentally get onto the scent of a real fox. Right? And then they'll chase it and kill it. And as long as the huntsman hasn't actively encouraged them to do so, he hasn't broken the law. So the only way that you're going to get sufficient evidence that he's breaking the law is you've got to be filming him actively encouraging those hounds onto a live quarry. Right? And that's really difficult. You've got to be right in the right place to do that. And I've got to say, most hunt saboteurs faced with hounds chasing a fox aren't going to be trying to get the prosecution. They're going to be concentrating their efforts onto saving the life of the fox. Mostly these chases start, again, like at this time of year, those foxes are in the woods. But in the main season, they want that chase and the kill. So what they do, they put the hounds into the woods with the wind behind them so that the smell of the hounds is carried towards the foxes. The foxes smell the hounds coming, they panic, they run, and they're going to get out onto the open fields and they'll be running for their life with the hounds chasing. And then all these fine gentry in their red coats will be galloping afterwards, dying to see the moment at which that fox loses its life. There's something very wrong with these people. This is, of course, where the hunt sabs intervene. A clever hunt saboteur knows exactly where that fox is going to pop out the woods because it's going to have the wind blowing the scent of the hounds towards it. You're going to get at the end of the woods where the wind's coming in from the other end, and then you get low and quiet and very, very still, and you wait for that fox to break past you. Right? And once he's gone, there's your moment where you can intervene. I didn't bring it with me on this trip because it stinks the place out. We have an essential oil called citronella. It's a lemon-scented essential oil. And hunting hounds hunt by scent, so they smell where the fox has gone. So once the fox has gone, we spray the ground with this essential oil, and this covers up the scent of the fox so that the hounds can't chase anymore. Then comes the next trick. From when they're tiny puppies, the hunting hounds will have been taught that the whip means they're doing something wrong. They'll have been beaten with one of these things by the huntsman, and they know the noise of a whip as well. So the noise of a whip being cracked tells a hunting hound to stop. Well, hunt sabs make homemade whips. This is a bit of an old broom handle, some climbing rope and a bootlace, and some masking tape. And that noise means stop to a hunting hound. So if they're starting to chase that fox, hunt sabs cracking their whips and the hounds are going, hang on, what, we're doing something wrong, we're being naughty here, oh, we're going to get hit. So you've disrupted them, you've just thrown them that little bit. Huntsmen in England and other countries use hunting horns to give instructions to the hounds. This, after I've been talking, I'm probably going to make a complete mess of this, by the way. So the idea of, I'm quite surprised actually made it do that, given their drama phrase. Right. So the idea of that is that you're trying to call the hounds towards you. There are a series of different commands the huntsman can issue. That one's telling the hounds come back. So you're blowing that, and this now rather disruptive pack of hounds is thinking, oh, we're meant to go over there, are we? Jolly good. My favourite toy though. When a hunting hound picks up the scent of a fox, it makes a strange crying noise, and it'll start to chase after the fox. And the cry tells the other hunting hounds that somebody's found something and they're going to come after it. So as soon as one hound goes into cry, all the others will start chasing the hound that's in cry. And hunt saboteurs have this lovely little toy. It's very lightweight. You put that on and you run, because of course the hounds are expecting that noise to be moving, because a hound that's in cry is going to be running. So you just run as fast as you can run, and you play that, and the hounds think, hello, somebody's found something, I'll chase after that. And they all come running after you, yeah? And now you've got a pack of hunting hounds, and the huntsman doesn't. And you just run and you run and you run until your lungs are busting, and gradually the hounds will realise there's something wrong because they can't smell a fox, so they'll be dropping off. So now this pack of hounds is now spread out over 2 or 3 fields, and you've probably got about 20 hounds with you, and this comes to one of the great moments of hunt sabotage, because this is lovely. When you stop, the hounds haven't got anything to chase, they haven't got anything to do, and they love a cuddle. Right, so you just get down there, you get on your knees, and you call them in, and they're all coming up, and they want a bit of fuss, and as soon as someone's having a fuss, everybody else wants one. You just end up buried in hunting hounds, about 20 of them all sitting on top of me, and it's great, because all the time they're with you, they're not with the huntsman, and they're not killing anything. And you can scatter a pack over 3 fields. It's going to take him 45 minutes to get them all back together again, and until he's got the whole pack back, he can't hunt. Right? And that's the essence of hunt sabotage. Right, so this form of hunting, this is permitted in some EU member states. Right? So in some countries, you're actually allowed to do this. Right, so this is a fox just literally, again, the hunters claim the fox dies from a quick nip to the back of the neck. No, they don't. A fox is a member of the dog family. Any of you who own a dog will know what happens when a dog knows it's losing a fight. It wants to surrender. It lies on its back and it puts its paws in the air. It's saying, I give up. Where does the hound bite the fox? He bites it right there. 10 years ago, the Home Office, the government in England, commissioned a study to find out whether hunting was cruel. And they did autopsies. The Home Office pathologists autopsied dead foxes and hares. In almost every case, the fox had died by being disemboweled. Not one of them had neck injuries. In almost every case, the hares that they autopsied were pregnant females. In almost every case, the hare hadn't been killed cleanly by the hounds, it had been finished off by the huntsman later. Hunting is cruel. You can't get away from that. Right. And this is stag hunting. Again, some EU member states actually permit this. You can see the stag in the photo on the left there, swimming for its life with the hounds swimming after it. Right. And that's permitted some places. Right. And this is hare coursing. Right, again, some EU member states permit this. So here you've got 2 dogs. You see again the left-hand photo, the 2 dogs have both caught the hare. That's going to die by literally being torn in half. Right, one dog pulling one way, one pulling the other. As I said, very often, amazing as it might seem, given the savagery of that attack, that hare is probably not going to die at the hands of the dogs, and the huntsman will have to come up and wring its neck afterwards. So it will suffer all that time it's waiting for that to happen. Right. Right. So hunting with hounds, as I said earlier, that's the sort of most common form that we see in England. I've got out of sync with my slides here. Bear with me a minute. There we go. Right. So this is some of the hunting terminology. In the United Kingdom, hunting hounds. Beagle is a smaller kind of hunting dog. Hare is quite a small dog, but the hunter on horseback. And the stag hounds you saw chasing the stag through the river in the previous one, or mink hounds. Now, mink hounds are actually otter hounds. Way back in the 1960s, it was made illegal to chase otters. So, of course, the hunters just didn't give up and go home. They just found a different animal to chase. And there are lots of mink living wild in the British countryside. These are mostly the descendants of ones that escaped from fur farms when wearing fur coats became very unpopular in England. A lot of the fur farmers just literally opened the doors of the cages and let the mink out into the countryside. And the old otter packs switched to hunting mink. Fortunately, this also got made illegal in 2005 when the hunting of foxes got made illegal. 3 weeks ago, we were out in the countryside near where I live, just on a training exercise, because my SAB group in South London has trebled over the summer, so I've got a lot of new people. So I had a couple of them out just doing map skills day. and we spotted a mink hunt 1 field away from us. We just ran across the field, and they very quickly packed up and went home, because what they're doing again, it's like the cubbing season. There is nothing that they can be doing there that could possibly be legal. Unlike the main part of the fox hunting season where they can pretend they're drag hunting, mink hunting, you've got a pack of hounds along a riverbank. They're there to kill wildlife. You can't lay a trail along that. Right, so as soon as they saw us coming with the video cameras, they turned and headed for home. 2 of them made the mistake of assaulting me whilst they were being filmed, so the police are actually currently investigating that, which is a pleasant surprise. So that's mink hunting. And you've got a large group of hunters, either on foot or on horseback. Coursing, you saw in the earlier photograph, usually 1 or 2 dogs chasing after a hare. And this is sport. What the main men doing that are mainly doing, they're looking to see which is the best, the most skilled dog. Right, so it's a competition. There's probably betting going on which of the dogs is actually going to kill the hare. Flushing to guns. Now, this is much more common across the rest of Europe. We don't get this very much in the United Kingdom. So what they do here is they will use some men and some dogs to drive wild animals out of the woodlands, and then there'll be men with guns waiting in small wooden towers, waiting to shoot those animals as they're driven from the woods. Right, so that's flushing to guns. And then gun dogs are used to retrieve the bodies of birds and rabbits that have been shot. Right, so the dog isn't actually involved in the chase, but it'll just go out and pick up the body and bring it back to the huntsman. And then one of the most absolutely horrible things is the terrier work. Right, terrier is a small dog. Obviously, the name comes from the French for the earth. And if you've got a fox or other animal that's gone underground, they put a terrier down the foxhole. And when the terrier and the fox meet each other, they lock into a deadly battle. What they do in the United Kingdom is that terrier's got a radio collar on, and the huntsman monitors it on a monitor on the surface. And as soon as the terrier stops moving, he knows that he's actually face to face with the fox in the hole. And then they'll dig down, pull the fox out and kill it, either by shooting it or quite often by actually throwing it to a pack of foxhounds if they're around. So terrier work. So more imagery here of the hunting with hounds. You can see the huntsman there in the middle with his trophy from the day. Right. And they do keep the bits. They mount the heads on their walls as a trophy. One of the sickest things of all, if it's the first time you've been present as a hunter when an animal is killed, they take the blood of the dead animal and they mark you with it. Right, and this is very often children. Right, so they take their kids out hunting, and when the kid sees its first kill, they'll literally put the blood of the murdered fox onto its forehead. They're very strange people. More images of the horrific hare course. You can see the hare thrown into the air as the dogs attempt to bite it. The flushing to guns, the driven hunt. Right, so particularly across Eastern Europe, Germany, right, really, really common. We came across one in Belgium recently, doing a lot to make sure that actually doesn't happen. There's the gun dog retrieving the bodies of the birds that have been shot. And this is the horrors of terrier work. So you just can't find anything more horrific than this. And this is still legal. This is the worst. This is the 21st century, and we let this happen. Now, when I started researching this is the thing that absolutely stunned me, because I've been out working with hunt saboteurs around lots of Northern Europe, and one of the things I keep hearing is everyone goes hunting. You know, you can't stop that in Sweden. Everybody does it. Oh, no, they don't. You'll be surprised by this, because I certainly was. These are the percentages of people who go hunting. They're tiny. These are the good countries. These are the countries where there are specific laws banning hunting. Right? I'm really, really pleased to see Luxembourg up there. Rock on Luxembourg. Right? An absolute worst case scenario out of this lot is Sweden with 3.2%. But everywhere else is absolutely tiny. 0.2. There's nothing. It's such a small percentage of people who are actually going out hunting. Even when we get into the countries that are bad, where there might not be specific legislation against hunting with hounds, but other forms of hunting are really common, apparently, the percentages are tiny. Down 0.3 there in Poland. You know, the worst case scenario there, I think we've got Cyprus and Finland on 5.6, but there's still not a lot of people against the entire populations of those countries. And even in the downright ugly, like the countries where hunting with hounds is legal, with just one exception, again, the percentages are absolutely minuscule. Only the Republic of Ireland, on 8%, has got any significant amount of its population actually going out hunting. Oh, and it wouldn't be complete without me mentioning my home port here. We're just confused, all right? There are 4 separate parts of the United Kingdom. England and Wales have got one set of laws. Scotland's got another set. Northern Ireland's got a completely different set of laws. So there's just this, even with the country, we can't get the legislation even across the whole place. And it's just crazy. The Hunting Act in England and Wales is just so badly worded. There's so many ways the hunters can claim that they weren't doing anything illegal. The law in Scotland is actually even worse, because in Scotland they're actually allowed to use an entire pack of hunting hounds to flush a fox from cover so it can be shot, whereas in England and Wales they can only use 2 dogs. Now, one of our big problems here is that our Prime Minister is a former hunter. His father-in-law is the master of a hunt in the Midlands, one of the most violent hunts in the entire country. He would love to see the Hunting Act repealed. He's promised that the Parliament will be allowed a free vote, so they won't have to vote on party lines. They can vote on however they feel that is right to vote. He knows he hasn't got the support. He knows he can't win, so he's a cowardly little... Rather than risk losing a vote, he tried to just slightly, subtly alter the law. His excuse was, I want to make it the same as it is in Scotland, so you can use an entire pack of hounds to flush the guns. Effectively, this would have re-legalised hunting, because if you're using 50 hounds to flush the guns and the hounds get onto that fox and chase and kill it, all the huntsman's got to do is go, oh, sorry, it was an accident. All I was doing was using them to flush out, and by accident they killed it, and he wouldn't have broken the law. Now, we got really lucky here, because he would have got that amendment through if the Scottish MPs had stayed out of the frame, which they've promised they won't vote on laws that don't affect Scotland. So on the face of it, the Scottish MPs shouldn't have voted, but as soon as they said, no, actually, this one's so important, we are going to vote, and we're going to vote against David Cameron, again, the cowardly little hoe just pulled out and didn't even hold the vote rather than risk losing it. Showed what sort of man he is. And even better still, that got us into negotiations with the Scottish government, and they are now looking at making their law much, much stricter, so that in fact it should actually be tighter than the law in England and Wales. So we might actually end up with a really good result out of that one. So David Cameron shot himself in the foot. Lovely. And overall, when you add up all those numbers, that is the percentage of people in the European Union who actually hunt. 1.34%. That is tiny. It's such a small percentage. But hunting is actually protected by law in many countries. It's a €10,000 fine if you sabotage a hunt in France. Doesn't stop the Sabs out there, by the way. They've been doing some really good stuff. Right? Again, France is the one with the weirdest thing. Every level of their legislature, from the town council, the borough councils, right up to the highest level of government, they have to have hunters represented. So you're never going to get democratic change there, because the hunters are sitting on all the committees that are making all the decisions about everything. It's just insane. I say in a lot of places it's actually illegal to sab. In Germany, in some of the states, it is actually a crime to be a hunt saboteur. It's quite simple. You just change your name. Don't call yourself a hunt sab. Call yourself a wildlife group. You just go around the edges. But there you go. Right. So you've got to ask yourself, how have this tiny, tiny minority been allowed to gain so much power and influence? In the UK, it's fairly obvious our royal family goes hunting. It's not surprising they've got the laws skewed in their favour, is it? And there are several 100,000 reasons, more reasons, why the European Union should act on this issue. Right? This is the fate of the hunting hounds. Right, and this is the one that is, for most people, news. Most people in England know that foxes are chased and killed. Most people are opposed to that. About 80% of people are opposed to it. And most of the 20% that think it's a good idea, it's because they've been convinced that foxes are vermin, or it's the kindest way to deal with them, or whatever. The thing that is hidden from most people's view is the fate of the hunting hounds. Right, on the left there, one that's been hit by a train. In the middle, a hound that's 7 years old. Hunting hounds live till they're 13 unless they're in the hands of the hunt. That hound is 7, it's being shot in the head because it's apparently too old and slow. The bodies of those they shoot are fed back to the rest of the pack. This poor little blighter tried to jump over a railway fence and didn't make it. Right. And across the United Kingdom, and of course the British people love animals, 11,000 hunting hounds every year are killed by the hunts. 11,000. That, by the way, is about the same as the greyhound industry kills. Right. The tragedy here is that most of these die at less than a year old. Right. A hunting hound's a big dog, it will live to it's about 13, but at 7 it's too old and too slow to hunt, so they shoot them in the head. So they've done 5 seasons. They come into the pack when they're 2, they're shot when they're 7. Which means 20% of all the hounds in that pack get killed every year. So of course then they need some puppies to bring in to replace the ones they shot. So they need 10. They breed 36. Each hunt breeds about 36 puppies every year. They only need 10. Guess what happens to the other 26? And they don't even have the courtesy to shoot them. The normal way of killing a young pup is to smash its brains out on the concrete floor of the kennels. According to the Huntsman we got this from, and this is a direct quote, 10 pence for a bullet is too much. Seriously. That's how they think. Right. So that is the appalling situation with the hunting hounds in the United Kingdom, but it gets worse. When I started scratching around this issue, I found this. Right, these are the galgos in Spain. Somewhere between 50 and 100,000 every year. They're considered surplus to requirements at the end of the hunting season. They're not shot. They're left to starve. They're hanged. They're burnt, they're drowned in wells. And it's the same in Portugal and Italy and Greece and Cyprus and Malta. Right across the southern half of Europe, this horror is going on year in, year out. Those kind of numbers, that's the casualty figures we're getting. There are rescue centres full of galgos that they've picked up off the streets, saved. And the hunters just dump dogs. I know someone sitting here has got a rescued Italian hunting dog. Right across southern Europe this horror is going on. And every single type of hunting, the hunting dogs are abused. The hunting hound on the left there, this is from a driven hunt, probably targeting wild boar. Well, a wild boar is a very big, aggressive animal. I know I've met one in the wild once. It was terrifying, very beautiful, but I didn't really want it running at me. That animal's lost its leg. Right, presumably whatever it was chasing has come back at it. The tusks on the wild boar are terrifying. Out in Eastern Europe, they're still hunting lynx and bears as well. So obviously you've got big carnivorous animals, and the dogs are up against them. You can see the blood coming out of the wound on the jaw of the one in the middle. And this poor little fella on the right here, this is a terrier that's been put underground, has come face to face with a fox. The fox is probably dead, but this poor little fella's lost most of his face. Right. But we can win, right? And I've had to alter this slide. I'm really pleased with this. When I wrote this slide a couple of months ago, it was a 1-year ban here in Luxembourg. I'm really pleased that someone come up to me today and said it's 3 years now. Right? So hunting with hounds has just been banned here. Right. Technically it's illegal in the United Kingdom. It's definitely illegal in Germany and Austria. Right. It's possible. We can get this legislation through. Right. I asked our lawyers actually asked for a copy of this, and they picked up a couple of other points that I hadn't realised about the legislation and about why Article 13 would actually apply, as well as the fact that obviously a lot of those hunted animals are farmed. The hunting hounds themselves, of course, are farmed. That makes it agriculture. And hunters travel from one country to another. Lots of English hunts where they're no longer allowed to legally chase and kill foxes actually just come over to France for the day and hunt in northern France. Lots of German tourists go out to the countries in Eastern Europe where they're allowed to hunt species that they wouldn't be allowed to hunt in Germany. Right? So this comes under the internal market part of Article 13. So I think we've got a really, really strong case for going back to the EU. I'm told that Luxembourg currently holds the presidency of the EU. So whilst Luxembourg holds the reins, as it were, maybe we can get a line through to the Luxembourg authorities and actually get them doing something within the European Union. Right. earlier today, I met the person who actually put that petition online. Right, it's going right around Europe. You can get onto the site and sign the petition. The more pressure we put on, the more signatures we get on that petition that asks our politicians to ban hunting with hounds, the better. There's a lot that can be done by way of campaigning, and obviously one of the things that's key in this, we need to keep the publicity running. Right, we need to keep this in the public consciousness. When David Cameron tried to cheat and bend the Hunting Act, it put it back on the front pages of the newspapers in the United Kingdom. One of the more popular papers ran a 7-page article, this huge expose, a former huntsman who'd now turned to our side, and he just ditched the dirt, all the horrible, vile things that the hunters do, and the paper devoted 7 whole pages of a major national newspaper to that story. Funds poured into the Hunt Saboteurs Association. Members poured into the Hunt Saboteurs Association. Active new SABs poured into the Hunt Saboteurs Association. Cameron just shot himself in the foot by trying to do that. It was a dirty trick and it's backfired on him, which is absolutely great. Around the rest of Europe, there are SAB groups. I spoke to someone who's in contact with the Austrian SABs today. There are definitely SABs in Germany. I've seen photographs of SABs destroying a hunt near Dusseldorf. There are definitely Belgian SABs. We've been training with them all summer. They're an absolutely awesome group. They've done so well. Key there is they listen to advice on how you start a SAB group, and it's all about research to start with. You're not just going to rush straight out into the field, however many of you've got, and try to disrupt a hunt. You've got to find everything you can about the hunt, its tactics, where they're going to go, what the laws are in your country, anything that might potentially help you, anything that might be a problem to you. Yeah? So that by the time you actually get in the field for the first time, you're knowledgeable, you're in command of that situation. Right? And if you do run into the police and the authorities, you're telling them what they should be doing to help you. And there are things in Belgium, for example, there are strict rules about releasing birds to then shoot them. Right? And if you can find that the hunt is not obeying those rules, you get out on that hunt, you're the ones calling the police in. And it's a strange thing about the police, I've always noticed this. They say it about teachers too, and given that I'm a teacher, I have to listen to this one. Justice is whoever gets to the teacher first. Same with the police. The police will take the person who's phoned them and said, there's something going on here, can you come? You're automatically the victim and the other person is the perpetrator. So if you can be sure that your hunt is breaking the law and you phone the police and say, there's an illegal hunt, can you please come? Immediately you're the person on the side of the police and they'll be supporting you and not against you, and that's really important. So when we had the mink hunt that we stopped 3 weeks ago, that was exactly the situation. I phoned the police the moment I saw that hunt, and when they arrived with the mindset of, there's something illegal going on here, we'll talk first to the people who've reported it, and then we'll take the details of the people that we think are doing it. So all of that hunt got their details taken by the police. It was very amusing watching that one. Right. We can win. We can form SAB groups. So the French hunts have definitely been out, and the French hunt saboteurs have been out disrupting the stag hunts. Very, very difficult group of people to be targeting. The Belgian SABs are doing absolute miracles in their country. Dusseldorf, Germany, Austria, Holland, the geotagging, the hunting towers have all been located and put onto a website. There's lots and lots of things you can do and get it in a public consciousness, and then let's all jump on our politicians and go, we want change. 1.3% of the population of the EU carrying out these acts of barbarity, while the rest of us just don't want it. And our politicians, enough of us scream that loud enough, they've got to listen. Thank you.